Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. So we started this series of soft skills where I am covering all the parts of communication. So if you haven't seen my previous videos, go to my channel, subscribe it, and then you will be able to see part-wise series of my soft skills communication that I have started with communication. So in my previous video, we shared that what are the types of communication, how does it work, and what are the functions that you need to keep in mind while having that soft skill communication. Moving forward, we are going to discuss. So, these are the styles of communication. We use either of these styles, and I will share with you what kind of a style is used where. So, when we talk about the styles of communication, there is the first portion that is called as passive communication. So, passive communication is something where you are soft spoken, you request a person, and you are using a very softer tone, you are using a very gentle tone, your body language is very calm, composed, and the opposite of it is aggressive tone. We all know, and you all must have seen, aggressive style of communication is a harsh style of communication, and generally people's outburst or any kind of anger or any kind of a rudeness that comes is a sense of aggressiveness, a style of communication. And the third part is passive aggressive, where initially the person is passive and later on he or she becomes aggressive. Mostly happens in relationships where they try to be passive, they try to be soft spoken, but something doesn't go right and the conversation goes from passive to aggressive. Now, let me take you much detailed in this. So, all these kinds of communication are sometimes necessary. You might be thinking where passive cannot be used and where it can be used. There is a situation where even aggression is required. And what are those situations? You should always be humble, down to earth, and always try to use passive approach in any of your requests or whenever you are communicating. It is the best approach in certain situation, not always. However, aggressive tone is something where, something is going to harm you physically, or if somebody is trying to molest you over there, please don't be passive, because that is going to be an opposite style of communication. If something is going to hamper your safety physically, then you need to protect yourself, and over there aggression may work, nor passive nor any other style won't work. So protection is this place where aggressive communication really works well, but it can only happen in extreme cases. However, try avoiding this kind of a communication in general arguments or any simple fights. This can lead to more fights. The most dangerous part of the communication is passive aggressive. I think a lot of couples go through this, where they try to discuss something, talk about something. Later on, it is converted into aggression, and that is not a right approach to solve any problem. So out of these three, which is the best way to put your thing forward? You have tried passive approach. Now you're thinking that the other person is not able to listen to you, not able to understand you. Then you come to approach where you use assertiveness. Now, what is assertiveness? And assertiveness is something where you put your point across without being rude and with creating a boundary. So in my aviation career, we used to practice this. The passive approach was, sir, may I request you to please turn down your mobile phones. That was a passive approach. Now, if the passenger is not listening, I can't be aggressive with him by shouting at him or being angry with him, nor I can be passive and then aggressive. The other tone, after 2 or 3 times, if the other person is not listening to you, you just have to say certain things with a backup of a policy or a rule. Sir, if you do not switch off your mobile phone, the flight would get delayed as I will have to inform captain for the same. Now I'm using a rule, a tone which is not rude, to the point, and bringing the awareness back to person's mindset, where he or she understands that what exactly assertiveness means. So these are the styles of communication where which you can use well. As per my recommendation, I think passive aggressive, the third one which you can see, should be avoided the most, because that either creates a chaotic situation or that sometimes creates a very pathetic situation that can create problems in your surroundings. So I have given you an example also, that where you can use passive, where you can use aggressive, and where you can use assertive. If you're working with a boss or a manager or in a relationship where a person is not able to understand your point as a passive approach. Please go ahead and use an assertive approach where you are not disrespecting the other person. You are not being rude to a person, but you are putting your point across that, I feel this should be done like this. However, I disagree with you with whatever you're saying, rather than, getting angry that, you never listen to me, you are like this, you are like that. Instead of that, you can use an assertive approach that I agree, whatever you are saying, maybe that is your thought process, but I think if we can do this thing in this way, that would cause so and so. And if you put value, fact, or rule along with it, that can be really good approach if you really want to be assertive when you're getting angry, when you feel people are not listening to you. Rather than aggressive approach, always try the assertive approach, and you can pick up a style of communication. And this comes with lot of practice, lot of conscious efforts, lot of awareness, and then only you can create this in your life. Now, next comes is the obstacles of communication. Well, these are very limited, that is shown on my screen. There are more and more obstacles of communication which you can pick up. The first and foremost that we can pick up over here is language difference. The language difference that we have can be a biggest communication obstacle. If the other person is not able to understand your language, your tone, because certain languages have certain tone, we might feel that the other person is rude. No, but their tone is only like that. So difference of language can become an obstacle. Maybe the other person is not able to communicate in the right way, or even if they're trying to translate and communicate, half of the information or crux is mixed. Half of the information or crux gets mixed. So their language difference can create a barrier in communication. Next comes is your gestures, very important. Of course, also a part of non-verbal communication, where certain gestures of ours can communicate as negative. You might have seen and experienced in your personal lives also that certain gestures you might have not liked of a person, where the way you kept the phone, the way you looked at me, way you closed the door, I did not like it. I thought you're doing it in anger. But we never know what the other person is doing, with what intention. So this can also become an obstacle of communication, where non-verbally you assume certain things, or non-verbally you communicate something through your body, where everything around you just goes for a toss, and people misunderstand you, or you misunderstand people with gestures. The next thing that comes is clarity. In case you are not speaking with clarity, or the other person is not. So if you remember my 8 C's of communication, if you haven't seen that video, please go ahead and watch it. I have uploaded it in my second part of communication chapter. You need to speak with clarity. That means your words should be clear, your voice should be clear, full information should be passed on, and then only obstacle of communication can be reduced. Half of the time things are in my brain and I am not able to speak, and we thought we have spoken clearly, and the other day you just tell that person, I spoke to you that day, you didn't listen to me. Hey, when did you tell me this? You only told me this much. So he said, no, 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 I told you the entire thing. I thought you must have understood. No, but you never told me. So that's how confusion starts happening. So you need to be clear, and your information should be complete. So if your all 8 C's are complete and clear, this issue can never come. Next comes are your jargons. Now, what are jargons? Industry specific terms are called as jargons. For example, there may be certain terms that are used in IT industry. There may be certain terms that are used in medical industry. There may be certain terms that are used in military industry. Your industry people might understand that term, but jargon can again create an obstacle in the communication, where you are using certain terms where the other person is not able to understand that what is the meaning of it. Next comes are your assumptions, biggest issue in today's communication era, where you start assuming, that person did not speak to me that day, or this person is genuinely giving me, is making me do, he has some issues with me, he doesn't like me, he does this, she does this. These are assumptions. Assumptions creates overthinking. So if you stop your assumptions, if you have an assumption, either clarify it or don't think. These are the only two options to remove assumptions. If you have an assumption for something, have guts to clarify it. If you can't clarify it, don't create your own stories in your mind, because it again leads to stress, overthinking, and problems in your career and in your personal relationship. Semantics, what words mean. Sometimes same words mean different meanings. So one word can have different meanings. For you, one word might have a different meaning, and for me, one word might have a different meaning. So be careful when you are speaking different words which are heavy on vocabulary, because you never know what the other person is trying to correlate it with. Non-verbal boundaries, this I have covered in non-verbal communication also. This is the biggest boundary where the other person can assume, you can interpret, other person can interpret for you. This non-verbal boundary we need to break. If you have an assumption, if you have a thought, if you have a question in your mind, it's better to ask and clarify rather than thinking that this person never speaks, he's very khadus, he's very this, she's very this, she's very that. Instead of assuming, if you haven't spoken to that person, if you have not known that person, please go ahead and speak, because you never know what the other person is until and unless you have worked with that person, you have been with that person throughout. Next comes is the cultural differences. Maybe something is really good in Eastern culture, or maybe something is not good at Western culture. These differences also create an obstacle in communication. For certain things, 11 o'clock in the night may be good in one person's culture, but for the other person, it might be a hindrance. That's how differences starts happening. That's how fight starts happening. That's how difference of opinion starts happening. Then comes is your tone of message. We all know that we should be correctly speaking, and our tone of message should be soft and subtle, because sometimes we are speaking clear, sometimes we are speaking to the point, exactly at the point, but our tone of message is too rude. So you must have seen people where they were complaining, maybe your tone, sometimes your tone comes out in such a way, because if you have kept certain frustration inside you, that can come as a tone. Then if there are too many noises, if you're talking in traffic, or if you're there in a party, your voice cracks, or there is too much noise, then of course that also becomes a barrier in communication. And after that noise, your phone gets switched off. Then again, the other person, especially happens in case where, kids are partying late at night and there is too much noise of party, and the parents are concerned that what time the kid is going to come back, and your phone battery dies, what will you do? There will be a lot of noise. So we need to be careful when we are doing all these things. So it's better to communicate. If you're not in noise, just leave a text message that I'm at a noisy place. We have the opportunity to send text messages, WhatsApp. The best way to remove any kind of a communication problem and obstacle is to communicate. People don't communicate, people don't talk. That is the biggest challenge. Next comes is prejudice and biases. What are prejudice? Prejudice is we have a thought process about a country, a sect, or a political community. You have a thought process about that. So when you have an ingrained thought process about it, it takes a lot of time for a person to remove prejudice. You have attained it from your childhood, from your society, around people. So this becomes ingrained in you that, this country is like this only, I'm not going to support it, or this community is like this, or this religion is like this. So that also becomes a barrier in communication. What if from that country, that religion, or that, political party, somebody is working in your team? So, of course, you will go with that hesitation, you will go with that mindset. And that again becomes a problem with communication. And there are a lot of other distractions. You can say internet, you can say fights, you can say childhood things, or some fight that has happened. So, these are the major ones that we have picked up. So, I'll be continuing this topic in my next episode. I'll see you soon. Thank you for watching this. If you want to get in touch with me, there is my LinkedIn and Instagram page in the description box. I take a detailed training on soft skills, and I am a life and mindset coach also. So I train and heal people with whatever they are going through. If you really like my channel and want to support my channel, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you, and bye-bye.